Of course, and by the way, and I said this and not serious, and I want to double down on it. Do not take post-draft grades seriously. They don't matter. They're not real. They are people trying to get ahead and people who want to put their flag on the I was right before everybody else was. Unless you're me, of course, in which this is a very thought out, well educated process, not something I just did 30 minutes before the show, obviously. I kid. So, with that being said, we have our stepping stool. You know how this works. It's our 10 NFL teams that we think are the best currently. This is a post-free agency, post-draft, who I think did the most to improve themselves. Obviously, there's still a handful of things that can be done between now and the season starting. We'll get clarity on who is starting, who's not. These are the 10 best teams post-draft, post-free agency on our stepping stool. So we got to start, obviously, here. Now, let me be very clear here. The teams, there's what's going to be really confusing about this all year long is 14 teams make the playoffs, which means theoretically we have 14 good teams. Yes, you could argue the 7th seed is not going to be obviously a great team, and that's fine, that's fair, that's valid, but 14 good, really good teams. That means there's 4 good teams, because that's what people are going to go to. They're going to be like, how'd you not include this? How'd you not include that? The NFL is telling you by having 14 playoff teams. They think they have 14 teams of that quality. So just because your team's not on here, it ain't the end of the world, and it doesn't mean that I think your team sucks. It just means I don't think they're one of the 10 best post-free agency, post-draft. Yeah. So starting here at number 10, I know they're going to kill me. It's fine. I know the Commanders just went. They were one of the 4 best teams in the NFL last year. They made the NFC Championship game. I don't subscribe to that logic. I think just because you had a great run, you had a great season, Jaden Daniels. Here's the thing, and this is where I think Washington is going to struggle. Washington did, which I really liked, address their offensive line. You have Jaden Daniels, who's your franchise quarterback, who has injury concerns. He got hurt in the middle of last year. He had injuries in college. And because of, we've all seen the viral highlight tape of him getting hit and the way he gets hit, we all know he is a injury risk. So they went out, they drafted Connerly. They went and traded for Laramie Tunsil. Love both of those. I think both of those were extremely smart, extremely well done. Very smart moves by the franchise in the offseason. Protect your franchise quarterback. I do think Washington, where they're going to struggle and where they got exposed, and I think it's going to be exposed even more this year, Washington gave up the 3rd most rushing yards of any team, and I don't think they did anything to really improve that. And when you play, and I know people are going to push back and say, well, they beat all these teams but the Eagles. Look, yes, you did this time. But the thing about not being able to stop the run is it's a compounding issue, because if you can't stop the run one week, your defense goes out there and plays 40 minutes, and that leads to longer drives. It leads to more injuries, or the potential of more injuries. There's a lot of things that cumulatively build up for teams that cannot stop the run. So, and that's going to be an issue that is, you're going to see these other teams I have above them are teams that can run the ball, they can be physical, and it's teams I don't think Washington is going to match up real well with. So Washington's still one of the 10 best teams, and be honest, Commander fans, you were picking number 2 overall just the draft prior. If you're a top 10 team in the NFL a year after drafting 2nd overall, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. Number 9 is the Chicago Bears. I love a lot about Chicago has done this offseason. Obviously, I was high on Caleb. I ended up being more critical of him throughout the season because I did think there was some underwhelming things. We saw a lot of underwhelming things. But look, your coaching is going to be better. Flat out. Even if you don't think Ben Johnson is some super genius, it's going to be better than what they had. Offensive line is going to be better. Even if you think that the guys they brought in, there's always a slight risk with free agency of, are you paying for what a guy has done versus what a guy will do in terms of the level of their play? Potentially, but your O-line is going to be better. It can't be worse. Caleb, by that same logic, is going to be better. He's got, yes, Keenan Allen is no longer there, but I actually like replacing him with Luther Burden. Keenan Allen wasn't that great to begin with last year, and so replacing with Luther Burden, I think you get similar, if not more, production. Again, the offensive line, the coaching staff. I like Loveland in the draft. There's a lot here to like about Chicago. The problem with Chicago, honestly, is this division is really, really tough. This division, it's, again, a 14-win team didn't get to host a playoff game. That's how tough this division is. So, but I like what Chicago's done this offseason. I would have them in my way too early top 10. At number 8, I have the Chargers. I don't totally understand Jim Harbaugh's philosophy, I'll be honest here, that he claims to love Justin Herbert as much as any one coach loves a particular player, but he also has spent most of his resources getting offensive linemen and running backs because he wants Justin Herbert to be the best quarterback that only throws 10 times a game. I don't get it. It obviously worked for them. They made the playoffs. They're going to be one of the better teams in the NFL. I do have questions about Herbert. Again, at some point, I subscribe to the crazy theory that Justin Herbert does have to win a playoff game at some point in his career. This is more, though, of a coaching. I think the roster is better. I think, obviously, Jim Harbaugh is one of the best coaches in the NFL. But this is another one where you're in a really tough division. And I get it. You were second in this division last year, but I think both the Raiders, they're better. I think the Broncos are better, better than they were last year. We'll see if I think they're better on the actual overall team. And the Chiefs are still the Chiefs, and you have to give them respect as long as they have Mahomes, Kelsey Reed, and if Kelsey is obviously not the player he once was, it's just, again, I just don't really understand we love Justin Herbert. We love Justin Herbert. Oh, he's so great. He's so great. And we're going to give Omarion Hampton and Najee Harris 40 carries a game? I don't quite get it, but you can't dispute the results. No Bosa anymore, but look, I think the defense is still going to be fine. They went from 32nd to 1 last year, and a lot of that was coaching. So the Chargers still in the top 10 by number 18. Number 7 is the Rams. I think, now I said last year, I thought the Rams are the second best team in their division, but I did think it was close, and if Aaron Donald hadn't retired pre-Niner injuries, I thought they could have beaten the Niners. Obviously, the Niners got injured, and that was the gap, and the Rams are the better team. I do think, though, we're getting a little too far ahead of ourselves now, because the same reason, like, I keep hearing, well, they're the only team that didn't lose badly to the Eagles, weren't blown out by the Eagles, and that is true. I also don't know if I'm willing to justify that to move them into into the top 5 category, which is they're on the outskirts. I think, yes, their defense, it's a lot of this should happen, but will it happen? Like, you should still have Puka Nacua as a wide receiver one of the 4 or 5 best receivers in the game. I also saw Cooper Kupp, who was in a similar role, and his body expired much quicker. It's a lot of over-the-middle routes. It's a lot more getting hit than other primetime receivers. Their defense should be better. Jared Verse, it's a lot of young guys. But it's a lot of shoulds with the Rams. And there's just not enough concrete where I was like, okay, I didn't feel comfortable putting him into the top 5. I don't think they had some A-plus free agency / and draft where I was like, oh, this is for sure the thing that's going to push them into this category. So that's where I got the Rams. Now let's address the biggest one I'm going to get the most pushback on. I don't care. I 1,000% believe it. It's absolutely true, and that is the Broncos are 6. Look, the only teams better than the Broncos right now are the clear heavyweights of both the AFC and NFC respectively. Denver's defense, just defensively, is the 11 best names any team is going to put out there. They have 2 great safeties, multiple corners, 2 good linebackers, defensive line. They seem just like the NFL in sacks. They have the defensive player of the year in Surtain, added Barron in the draft, still have Riley Moss, McMillan. They added Hufanga. They added Greenlaw. This defense is going to be the best defense in football. And Bo, and I know we're back on the Bo was going to turn into Mac Jones. He's going to have a horrible sophomore season. Everything everybody said last year about Bo. Look, another year with Sean Payton. Added another receiver in the draft. They got another running back, which Sean Payton's only drafted 4 running backs in the top 100. Bush, Kamara, Ingram, and now who they just drafted here. Pretty good company, right? So Harvey as the running back, I think the running game is going to be better. The offensive line was great last year. There's no reason to think it's going to take really much of a dip. No one is like over the hill or entering, the end of their career. Everyone's kind of in that perfect 28 to 32 range as far as age-wise. McGlinchey'd be the oldest, but still offensive line, year 2 in this system, the best defense in football. This is going to be a team that Bo doesn't have to be a 35 to 40 touchdown guy. He just needs to be a 25 to 30 touchdown guy. And with the number 1 defense in football, that is good enough to get you in just outside the top 5. But I do think they're still worse than a team like the Ravens, who the Ravens added another safety in the draft, which I think is going to open up Kyle Hamilton. And this defense, which obviously started off not great last year, worked its way back into form, turned itself into the normal Baltimore-esque defense that we are used to watching. Obviously, you've got Lamar, probably should be 3-time MVP at quarterback. You still have Derrick Henry. This is still going to be one of those teams that it feels like Tony's had the opinion, and I'm pretty much right there with him. They have to lose the game. They're just going to walk off. This is the off-the-bus team right now. They just walk off the bus, and they're better than you. Now, there is things that can happen, obviously, with coaching. John Harbaugh did just get an extension, but we'll see if they are still – we'll see if he is still truly one of those coaches or if he is just at this point in his career just more of a guy. I know Tony's had his own issues with Harbaugh over the years, but this team just gets off the bus. They're bigger, better, stronger, faster than you. Another really good draft. And, yeah, top 5, it's the Ravens. I think the only reason why I can't put them higher is because I do think at coaching – there is just this mismatch of when Harbaugh goes against Reed, what he's able to do and how he's able to perform. And most of the times it's not performing. And so I think the Ravens, by all estimation, are better than the Chiefs at almost every single position outside of exactly quarterback and D-tackle. But Andy Reid just has the Ravens and Harbaugh's number, which is why I still think they're 4. I do think this is going to be, again, and I was on this last year, obviously they made the Super Bowl still, but I do think this is clearly a weaker Chiefs team. They are banking a lot on Josh Simmons, hopefully becoming the guy he was at Ohio State, coming off injury. And there's just this offensive line has issues. They signed the 49ers backup tackle, so there's a lot of question marks still on this offensive line and a lot of hopefully this works to fix this problem. And obviously when your best player is your quarterback, and Mahomes is an all-timer, he is great, one of the best we've ever seen. But if you can't protect him, you can't protect him. Which is why I think Buffalo is better. Also, Buffalo, and I put this out a lot last year, and I want to reemphasize, we always go to helping the quarterback at skill positions. Like, get skill, get receivers, get running backs, get tight ends. The reason why Josh Allen probably had the best year of his career is because Buffalo invested in his offensive line. And those 5 guys were more impactful and more detrimental to his success than just having 3 or 4 skill guys who are great. And so and I'll probably be wrong because it's really similar. I just think Buffalo's slightly better. There is still issues here with Buffalo trying to beat Kansas City and how it's worked out in the playoffs, and it just has never worked out for Buffalo in the playoffs. But I think still this, willing to be wrong again, I think this is Josh Allen's year, man. That being said, though, I do still think the 2 heavyweights in the NFC are better, and that is the Lions, who I think have, despite both coordinator losses, I think for at least this year specifically, is we're still going to see the impact of Dan Campbell, and Dan Campbell is going to get his top 5 coach respect this year. I think the Lions are still going to be 12, 13 wins, one of the best teams in the NFC. Yes, that division is crazy tough, but I have a lot of faith here in the Lions. The roster, the culture, the coaching. And so the Lions to me would still be number 2, which obviously leads our number 1 Super Bowl champions. They just keep getting away with murder in the drafts. This team has everything, man. O-line, D-line, tight end, receivers. Like, there's nothing that you can say that Philly is bad at. And they keep getting better. Again, they got Campbell in the first round. I don't know how Philly's allowed to get away with this, but they do. And it's just one of those things where we just have to accept Philly's a genius.